Today we're looking at the Collaborative Leadership Initiative and one of the many projects they're currently working on. The Collaborative Leadership Initiative is a partnership between the chiefs of the Southern Chiefs Organization and the mayors and reeves of the WMR. Since 2017, CLI leaders have been working through a process of reconciliation facilitated by the Center for Indigenous Environmental Resources. The leaders have identified the protection of clean water, waste management, increasing economic opportunities, and good jobs as potential areas for collaborative action. The priorities identified by the CLI leaders also align with several of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, including SDG 11, Sustainable Cities and Communities, which makes sure that our communities and region remain safe and secure from the impacts of a changing climate and extreme events. This summer, several projects are underway across the region to pilot the use of green infrastructure to protect our water, our land, and our communities. One of these projects is currently being completed in the rural municipality of Rosser. Today, we're going to talk with Dr. Hank Venema from Strategic Systems Engineering to find out a bit more.
The project is an innovative use of an asset that the municipality has access to. It's a resilience project and it's a water protection project. When by resilience, I'm referring to climate resilience, the idea that we need to utilize our infrastructure in new and better ways and build different infrastructure to cope with the impacts of climate change. The project in Rosser makes use of what we commonly refer to as rural ditches. The innovation of this project is to recognize that what we think of as just rural ditches are actually ecologically active zones. They're biologically active zones. And they can be managed for more benefit than they currently provide. So we're reinterpreting the concept of the rural ditch as a linear wetland. Kind of an interesting idea, we think, to combine water management by using ditches and by using their biological features. What ditches do is take runoff from agricultural fields and move it downstream. But what happens along the way is a lot of that water gets stuck for whatever reason. That's generally not what you want, but it has the effect of causing a lot of vegetation to grow in those ditches. And then municipalities like Rosser have to go and get a tractor and a mower and clear those ditches. Occasionally, usually not, they actually have to remove that vegetation from the ditch. Generally, most municipalities just cut it and leave it, which has the effect of re-releasing the nutrients that vegetation trapped in the first place. So as with the water that runs off the agricultural fields comes a lot of the nutrients, the nitrogen, the phosphorus that have these negative water quality impacts. They're good for agricultural crops. That's why they're on the field. But if there's too much, they run off, and then they cause things like algae blooms in Lake Winnipeg. And what we're doing with Rosser is we're showing that by harvesting the vegetation from those ditches, they create a stack of benefits. So we've got the biomass itself, which has food value to animals and energy value. It can be used as an energy source. We've intercepted the pollutants, the nitrogen and phosphorus, before they hit Lake Winnipeg. And we have actually recycled the nutrients because the nutrients are actually valuable as fertilizer. That's why they're on the fields in the first place. So if we choose to, as Rosser intends to do, use that biomass, these big bales we'll take out of the ditch, if they, as is their plan, use that to heat their municipal buildings, well, the phosphorus in particular, which is the key pollutant for Lake Winnipeg, it's in the ash. So we've just got these big bales of biomass that we've taken out of the ditches, we've burned them, we've used them to heat buildings, which is a productive use of the material. And then we've still got the phosphorus in the ash. So that can be returned to the agricultural field. So instead of letting that phosphorus flow through the ditches downstream, eventually to Lake Winnipeg, where it causes algae blooms and pollution, we've intercepted it and harvested it as biomass in the ditches where the municipalities have to work anyway. And we've created a new form of energy that reduces their use of natural gas. And we have the opportunity to recycle the phosphorus, which is in the ash of the biomass. Well, it's, as the name implies, it's biological material. It can be trees, corn stalk, it could be wood chips, it can be anything that's biological material. I mean, the context is Lake Winnipeg to some great degree. The context remains Lake Winnipeg, and the idea that we have to drop our phosphorus loading to Lake Winnipeg, because that's what is the key determinant of the algae blooms in Lake Winnipeg. So, okay, so how are we gonna do that? I mean, we've got 60 years or so of high input mechanized agriculture, and we've got a lot of phosphorus on the landscape. Every year we apply more, and when it rains heavily, as it will with climate change, when it rains, it's going to rain heavily, and it's going to push a lot of that phosphorus downstream to Lake Winnipeg. So you can imagine, it's almost, you can think of it as a first line of defense, an activated ditch network where you're harvesting the phosphorus. You're basically managing the downstream flow of the ditch network, intercepting the phosphorus and harvesting it as biomass. It's the first line of defense to protect a water body like Lake Winnipeg.
Chiefs from the Southern Chiefs Organization and mayors and reeves from the Winnipeg metropolitan region are working together to bring different perspectives and knowledge systems to the table that will help their communities confront common challenges. Together, the Collaborative Leadership Initiative is working towards meeting the goal of SDG 11, Sustainable Cities and Communities. Together, these leaders are showing us how to collaborate for a more sustainable region.